when you have a strong enough why, it doesn't matter what's been done before. There is nothing that you cannot do. You'll find a way. You'll try whatever it takes. And when you try something and it doesn't work, there's no question, you'll try something else. And if that
Right.
doesn't work, you'll try something else. You'll not ever stop until you get it right. That's how that works with a strong enough why.
Joke. Thursday Night Live, The Art of Sales Without Selling. He's Kirk Van Linden. I am Ryan Stanley. We are super excited to be here with you guys once again. Ready to talk some sales. Ready to help our group get something.
Yes.
Why, Kirk? Why are
Why
we
is that? It's
why?
a weird segue, but yes.
Yes. Why? Because we can. What is your why, Kirk?
For me right now, the why that's driving just us doing what we're doing, I have a couple of whys right now. One is, and I've shared this with you guys already, I actually love helping people. I've always loved it all the way as a kid. I've realized, and I'm okay with this by the way, but I love helping people because it makes me feel good. So yeah, it sounds selfless, but the truth is it makes me feel good to help people, really help them. I actually like to help them in such a way that they're able to do something without me next time, right? So it's not that I did something for someone, although I like doing that too. I like adding skills or knowledge or pointing them into a different trajectory that actually they can now do on their own, right? That makes me feel good. So selfishly, I like to help people because it makes me feel good. But also I like training. I also like just the learning aspect. I myself love learning, and I love giving people or pointing people in the direction when it comes to knowledge that will help them in the future. It's why I spent a number of years in learning and development in the corporate world, training sales, is because I could help set them up for the highest probability of success out of the gate, hitting the ground running. And I knew that if they could hit the ground running out of the gate, that they would, one, enjoy the process so much more. And two, their careers would skyrocket, because in sales careers and sales in general, if you're good at sales, a lot of things start falling into place. And I knew that I could be the one to point them in the right direction, and then the next part of their experience would be greatly enhanced. And again, that made me feel good selfishly. So I think right now that those are my big whys of why I'm doing what I'm doing with you, where we're out there really trying to give additional knowledge and insight and point directions and all of that, because it actually hits multiple pieces there. Like, I love to learn and I love to teach. I love to help other people. And especially in this space where you and I have gotten to see a lot of people struggle with sales. And then the worst part for me is seeing them quit before they ever got started.
Right.
I mean, just hundreds of coaches that never became coaches because it just didn't fall into their lap.
Because they hit the ground crawling.
Yeah, because they hit the ground crawling, which means they eventually give up and go get a job, or it's one of those things that hangs over their shoulders of like, eventually I'll probably do it again. That pains me because I know that I can help them hit that ground running, and then they will love it. And if you can get your coaching practice up and off the ground and have those conversations, that means you're able to help a lot more people more often, and you get better and better at it.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on that is there's a coach that I've worked with just even through my own coach certification training, who they're one of the best coaches I've ever had. And they're just organically natural. They're very intuitive. They ask the perfect right question. And even though
are you talking about me?
No. You're also on that list, Ryan. Ryan is a very great coach, and he's got like a decade of experience. But in this case, I'm not.
Somebody else.
But this individual is scared to death of sales, and honestly, a lot of the stuff that we do, I kind of use her as an avatar in the back of my mind, because unless and until she figures this part of it out, she's going to rob the world of experiencing coach greatness, right? And so that's what I'm always trying to solve for. And so I don't know if you wanted me to go that deep, but that's the thing that's fueling me right now, is that A, it feels good, and B, I'm trying to solve for something, like in her case, where the world deserves to experience her as a coach, right?
Yeah.
There are people who have situations or problems that can be solved or enhanced with her, But if she fails at business, if she doesn't learn how to talk to people, if she doesn't learn how to have the conversations and all of that, it won't ever happen. And so I feel like a moral obligation to play my part in this space.
Well, and it's also it's doing your part to allow her gift to be seen, right? And to let her see the value in her gift to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing when we don't have a why, and that's exactly where this conversation is going.
Yeah.
If I didn't see the title tonight is the power of why and how to strengthen yours, which is why I was so excited to ask Kirk why he does what he does.
Yeah, I didn't know he was going to hit me with that angle first.
I know.
So that was a very sincere, honest answer. There was no prep on that. So
yeah, and I love it. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. But it's absolutely the truth, right? And so when we can help other people and as coaches or whatever you're doing, if you're a fitness trainer, if you're in direct sales and you have a product, a lot of the time, and this isn't exactly where we're going with this, but even if you can help your prospects discover their why, obviously we know that as coaches, right? We discover their why. But if you're working in sales and you want someone else, your let's say fitness instructor, and you want people, you're selling your fitness. It's not so much about what you're doing sometimes or what you're going to do or the work they're going to do with you, as much as what is their why? What are they going to get in the end? What could be their why? Why do they want to work with you? What would be the value in it? So that wasn't really the point, but it's also important to know for anybody out there who has a product of some sort, whether it be a service or a product, if you're in direct sales, why is this value? Why is my product valuable to my clients? Like what can they really, why would their life be different because I'm offering it to them and I'm connecting them with it?
Yeah, just to pile on that, is that a corporate term? Pile on, dovetail in, let me trickle up, bubble down.
Can I piggyback on that?
Piggyback on that, yeah. So imagine somebody, for a fitness instructor you mentioned, somebody comes in and says, you know what, yeah, I just wanna try this out, right? And so I'm gonna buy 4 weeks worth of personal training with you, and then we'll just see where I go from there. Yep. Now you could say, sounds great, let's get you signed up. Or you could actually go into their why more and just say, yeah, you've come to the right place. Help me understand why. So what are you looking for health-wise? What will you gain from that? So you get these goals that you want. How will that make you better down the road, right? What do you gain from that? And once you go down the road, and we'll get into this a little deeper in a second, but what value? What are you actually going after? And what will that give you? Like, well, what's the good part of that, right? Then you can also go what beyond them. We'll do more for someone else typically than what we'll do for ourselves. So it's good to then transition into, hey, so imagine everything goes perfectly, exactly as planned. That perfect body that you wanted, everything that you wanted, nutritionally and fat levels and all that kind of stuff, whatever. In addition to yourself, who else gains from that? Who else benefits from you getting this right? And you might help them realize, like, well, I mean, of course, I'll look good in my bathing suit or whatever for my husband, my wife, my significant other, whatever. They might have children too. And so if they had children, you might say, how do your kids benefit from this? Well, I mean, I don't know, I guess I'll look better. How else? In addition to that, what else? Well, I mean, I guess as a role model, them seeing me take on a big challenge head on and conquer it, I mean, that's actually leading by example and would teach them some pretty important lessons in life. And now it starts to become, you're stacking it. You also can do it on the other side of things, which is, what pain have you gone through up to this point not solving for this? And what pain will you have if you go 4 weeks and then you don't go beyond that? And those kind of questions, right?
Yeah.
The point being that now they start to get that pain and pleasure dichotomy really built up. There's a scale that's happening. And even though they were just going to come in for those 4 sessions, that's in the back of their mind. You planted that seed and it's going to start fueling more and more. So the likelihood of them signing up for more than just those 4 sessions now skyrocket, especially if you deliver what you said you were going to deliver, reminding them of those whys along the way, that I heard you. And I know that right now you're trying out 4 weeks, but in 4 weeks, we are going to give you everything that we can to set you up on a trajectory that gets you those things, helps your significant other benefit in those ways, and helps you truly be that role model that you want to be for your kids. And we're going to give it our all in the 4 weeks. What you do from there is completely up to you, but let's hit this, right? And that just will fuel them. By the end of the 4 weeks, they're going to be like, hey, like, can I just pay for the year or the next month or whatever? They're going to stay now. They become sticky.
And you've gotten to know them on a different level. Like, you know what I mean? By instead of just saying, okay, cool, I'll take your money, I'll see you next week. for somebody to, whether they know it or not, even subconsciously, right? And then to take it a little bit further, not just make it a money thing and not just make it, in that perfect scenario when someone says, shut up and take my money. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen if it did, or something similar, for you to say, great, let's do that. But before we do, let's just get some clarity, right? So that also makes them feel heard and makes them feel like you actually care more than just closing the sale, right? And that type of thing. But Kirk, so the power of why.
Yeah.
Why, as a salesperson or anyone who's selling any type of a product, why, without sounding redundant, why is the power of why important?
Yeah, you didn't sound redundant at all during any of that. So.
Why do you think that?
I could go in a lot of different angles, but the biggest lesson that I learned about why, I thought I knew why and having a purpose before I got into sales. I did this when at an early age, when I got my black belt in karate when I was 10 years old. That was like, I thought I really had everything figured out then at 10, right? Yeah. Goal setting and why you want what you want, all that kind of stuff. And I did that throughout life through different things that I accomplished and achieved. And I found myself in my first, it was technically my third or fourth sales role, but this is my first very formal type of sales role. It came with intense formal training, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where my lesson, my learning on the why just got flipped upside down and way deepened. So in this space, there's definitely a long version of the story, but I'm going to give the short version of this story.
The briefer.
Short as I can. So I'm in training. The training is like 3-4 weeks long, and it's every day, 40 hours a week, and it is some deep training. And there was a particular individual in that training class. There were a total of, I think, 20 to 30 of us in that particular class. And I was taking notes, and I was raising my hand, and I was speaking up, and answering all the things. And I put myself into uncomfortable situations because I really wanted to be great at this. One of the things for me, my why at the time was, I hate feeling average. I don't like the feeling of being average. And I had this, what turns out to not be a healthy belief at the time, but it fueled me and I thought it was good. I used to believe that I had to work twice as hard to be half as good. So I would always work 4 times harder than everyone else so that I could be the best. It turns out that's exhausting, by the way, but at the time it fueled me really well. Well, there was a guy in the class, and he never looked at the instructor at all through the whole time. He actually would play Angry Birds on his iPad while everyone else is like learning and doing stuff, and it felt like he was ignoring the instructor. This went on for quite some time, and eventually one day, and I was just thinking like, what a jerk. Everybody in that class hated him. He was not likable. He didn't interact with anyone else. And the worst part was whenever they tried to catch him off guard and throw like a complicated question at him, he knew the answer like he had studied all of this already. Like he never got anything wrong, even though he never was paying attention. Worst kind of person, right? And so there was this boiling point. The instructor actually confronted him in front of everyone, and the instructor's face was red, like they just had enough. And they asked this person, they're like, are we boring you? Are we wasting your time? Would you prefer it if, and by the way, we're like a week and a half in, we're like less than halfway through this training. Would you prefer it if we just let you go out and just go ahead and start doing sales conversations and, just skip this whole training thing and all of that? And I remember like this moment was just like, how that when something weird happens, the tension's there, that everybody can feel it and you don't dare move.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
It seems extra silent all of a sudden.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't want to move, or like, I couldn't move my head, and I just felt it, right? The tension. And he's like leaning back and he's still playing, Angry Birds on his thing. And he lets him finish the whole thing. You can see him pause, and he like sits forward and he puts it on the table and he leans forward and he looks at him. He's like, hey man, look, I don't know if you're just bluffing or whatever, but yes, very much yes. If that's a possibility, I mean, if I can literally like right now, if I can leave this room and go do those calls, yeah. I mean, can we like, I don't know like what the protocol is, but like, can we go to my manager and actually see if that's a real possibility?
Right.
What a jerk.
Right.
So we hated this guy, right? I mean, so he was just ignored pretty much the rest of the way through the class. Now, here's the interesting part. when you go out on the floor, there's like 20 different teams that you could go on. This individual happened to be put on my team when we were in production. And for the first week, he did really well out of the gate. Like out of the gate, he did really well. And it's not a big deal out of the first week. But by the end of the first month, he was beating everyone on the team. But for clarity, there were only about 3 new people onto the team. The other ones had been there for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. In 1 month, he was beating everyone on the team. And so I figured he was just getting lucky. It was around month 2 or 3 when he started becoming one of the best ones in our whole site, in our building. Now there were 7 different sites. There's hundreds and hundreds of people in this competitive role, but he was now getting to the point where he was beating everyone in the building. So here's the punchline for this story. I had gone to my manager and we were having our one-on-one. We had regular one-on-ones. And I finally just said to him, because he was like, so what's your goal? And I was like, I really want to be top 50% in the nation. And he's like, okay, that's a pretty weak goal for somebody in sales. And I was like, okay. And he's like, let me take a step back. He's like, why is this individual, why is he beating you? And I was like, well, I mean, I assume he's cheating because I have a pretty strong why. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, then maybe that's what's your why? And then I told him about the thing that I'd mentioned a second ago. I was like, I hate being average. It fuels me in everything that I do. So I outwork everyone because, and all that kind of stuff, right? And he's like, oh, that's a pretty good why. It's a pretty good why. That makes sense now why he's destroying you. What? And I was like, is his why better than my why? And he's like, oh yeah. And I was like, what is his why? And he's like, look, only because we're having this conversation. He said, I'm gonna disclose some stuff to you that I feel like I probably shouldn't. This has to stay between you and I, but it's very applicable to what we're talking about. And I just want to show you the power of your why or lack thereof. And he said, so you don't like being average. And out of the gate, you said, I want to be above 50%, which technically is just above average at this point is right. What you're driving towards. And you're going to work 4 times as hard to be half as good and all that kind of stuff. He's like, that's all very sloppy, interesting stuff. He's like, here's his why. His wife is terminally ill. They've given her 4 to 6 months to live. They have 4 kids. And he has to support his family, and he has to do it in the shortest amount of time possible. So he's already gone and talked to the managers of these other more advanced sales teams. He has no other choice but to crush it in this role to a level that's never been seen before. And he's already gone to them and said, I need you to watch me, because these roles typically take up to 5 years to get promoted into them. And he said, I don't have 5 years. I need to be in there in 6 months or less. I need to be in these roles, and I need you to watch me now. And so he went there, and basically he got all of these managers, and he's like, everybody watch what I'm doing, and this is my story. This is why I have to do it, but I'm going to earn it. And so he went in there and he crushed it. While he was eating lunch, he'd be eating a sandwich, still taking calls and doing sales. He would take every minute of overtime ever available and offered, and he would not screw around ever. It was always game time. And I felt the chills, and I also felt like a total asshole because I thought about the classroom, and he's playing Angry Birds because he's distracting himself the very best he can. He already has sales experience, and he is chomping at the bit. Every minute that he wastes in this classroom is one more minute he could have spent out on the calls, getting closer and closer to being able to do what he needs to do before his wife passes away so that he can take care of his family in 40 hours a week or less. And that moment where I thought he was the biggest jerk in the world he was actually pleading, like begging, yes, please. He wasn't being an asshole. He was saying, if that is truly an option, I desperately need it. It's none of your business why, but I need to be out on the floor. So then all of a sudden I looked at my why again. I was like, yeah, you're right. I have a weak why. Right. Well, just for the moral of the story, by the way, he did everything that he was going to do. He became a huge role model and leader and legend in that space. not only for what is possible, but also the power of your why. Now, that's a unfortunate circumstance that it was forced upon him, but he could have also given up, but instead there was no other possibility than to succeed. And so nothing could stop him from getting what he wanted. So he did everything that he wanted to do, became super successful. Last I knew, he was still doing what he was doing, making a ton of money, but also like not spending more than 40 hours a week at work. So the rest of the time is home with the kids, and they're having a great quality of life while he's doing what he's doing. So it was a great life lesson for me to see, like, when you have a strong enough why, it doesn't matter what's been done before. There is nothing that you cannot do. You'll find a way. You'll try whatever it takes. And when you try something and it doesn't work, there's no question, you'll try something else. And if that doesn't work, you'll try something else. You'll not ever stop until you get it right. That's how that works with a strong enough why.
So just out of curiosity, like, what would you say to your former self, not having a comparison? If you had met, let's say, before you heard that message from your boss, you didn't know that was the case, and you were now going back in time and interviewing previous Kirk, past Kirk, and saying your why sucks, what would you say to help him improve his why?
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's so closely related to like the conversation Wendy and I had last week. The future self comes back, and there's a lot of time travel on this channel lately. Like, it's very, very cool.
We do karate. We do karate against ghosts.
Karate and time travel. That's what our whole channel's about. But yeah, so techniques on the how to now, or how to do it. So, well, first, getting leverage, by the way, which my manager did in a different way. He did it by sort of the shock and awe factor for me. Because you've got to first come to the realization that there's more. Your why can be stronger. By the way, your why can almost always get stronger if it happened organically and not on purpose, no matter what it is that you're doing. But I'd love to hear from the group. There's other ways on how to get stronger whys, but I'm going to share some of my own. I just want to make it clear this is not all of the ways to assess the strength and health of your why, and then also to enhance it. But I'd love to hear from the rest of you as well, like what you've used or what your why is even.
That's a great point. So if anybody's out there, feel free to, in the comments section, just write down what your why is. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. So, and as always, we always say, I mean, I forget to say this, but if you guys have any questions also, this isn't just Ryan and I talking, like we got things to share, but if you have questions or comments or disagreements, anything you want, this is kind of a all of us thing. So feel free to jump in comments, and I keep watching over there because that's where the screen is. So I can see Allison in there. I can see Ryan in there. And I see like a 30-second delay of my arms flailing as well. But so if you have comments, we'll see those and we'll respond to those as well. But here's a couple things I do. First thing is, so I first do coaches will know this. I'll ask myself why 3 times. I'll typically say, like, for example, you'll ask why I want to do what I want to do. So if I wanted to be a coach, that's, what are you planning on being? I want to be a coach. Okay, great. Why do you want to be a coach? It might be, if you're a transition coach, then you might say, well, I really want to help people in the transition periods, and I really like working with that particular spot. Great. Why is that important to you? Well, because I myself have gone through some pretty traumatic, serious transitions, and they were big struggles for me. And it took me too long, and it cost me a lot of opportunities that I really could have had if I was better at this. And that's what I'm really fueled by. I want that for other people. Keep asking why until you get to that point where you feel the emotion bubble up just a little bit, or even a lot, right? When you can get to that point, then that's what you really want to be focusing on first of all. So why do you want what you want, and keep drilling down. But the thing that I've done, 2 other things in addition to that, and by the way, let me just pause here. Hear these words, everyone. I go through this myself, but if you are to the point where you're not willing to have this real conversation with yourself, I mean real, like go for a drive, go drive around your block, or go walk and talk out loud, or get a piece of paper and write it down or type it. Don't just let it be thoughts in your head, but actually write it down or say it out loud. If you're not to the point yet that you're willing to do that in conjunction with your why, that's already a sign that you have a weak why. If getting the thing that you want, well, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted some clarity, because if you're not willing to
if
Write
you're
it
not
down
willing to put
out
the
loud.
energy, yeah, either one, any of those, if you're not willing to
Yep.
spend 5-10 minutes on your
Yep.
why behind this, then it already is an early scary sign that your why is not even strong enough. Where if you were to the point where you're just like, no, I'm going to be a coach. It's absolutely happening. It's a transition coach. I'm fueled by this. And I'm cutting off all other possibilities. I'm not going back to a job. I'm making a career out of this. And I know there are people out there that I can help in a way that no one else can, because no one else has been through exactly the same things that I've been through. They don't have the same skills. They don't have the same perspective. I know that I can help them. You probably already have a strong enough why where this is going to be easy. But if you're saying like, no, I want to be a coach, I think this can work out. I don't have any clients yet, but I know eventually I will, but you're not willing to do this exercise, at least do this. At least get yourself to be like, all right, I can at least save myself some unnecessary time down the road. If I can't sit down and come up with a strong why I want what I want, why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, and why I'm going to keep pushing through when things get hard, if I don't set myself up for that right now, then I have a pretty good chance that I'm going to quit and or not make it. So, you know, this is going to sound way too harsh, but I was going to say, so dust off your resume and go back to work.
Right.
But what I'm really saying is like, save yourself a bunch of time and energy if you're not willing to put in a little bit of work, 5-10 minutes, and it actually feels really good, honestly. So I felt like that went down a dark road. So hopefully you guys didn't take it in that way. It's hard just to get ourselves to say, you know what, all right, I'm just going to go for a drive. And that's what I do, by the way. I just go for a drive and I talk out loud, and it just works for me. People think I'm talking on the phone, I assume, or they think I'm a crazy person driving around in my Toyota 4Runner, and they're like, yeah, crazy people drive Toyota 4Runners. That's how it works.
And both of those may or may not be true.
Yeah, and they may both be true. It's not one or the other, guys. So I mentioned the whys, 3 whys. Another thing that I do is something we alluded to when strengthening that personal trainer person that came in for the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll go into the pain and the pleasure. So I was in my early 20s when I wanted to start buying real estate. So before I ever bought my first property, I had gone to Europe after I graduated from college, threw on a backpack, stayed there for 2 months. And every day I used to write in a journal that actually wasn't much bigger than this. I still have it to this day. And I had failed at finding properties for about 8 months prior to Europe, by the way. I looked at properties, put in some offers, got turned down, couldn't get the financing, got talked out, got scared, all sorts of stuff. Well, while I was in Europe, I did something similar. Like, why do I want to own rental properties and all that? I did my whys and I got down to it. But then another thing that I would do is I tapped into my own pain and pleasure. So I played it out in the future. So yes, I want to own rental properties, but to get clear, I want to have pure passive income enough such that I never have to work again. I'm going to keep working. I'm not going to be lazy, but I'll have enough properties to be passive income to afford survival, right?
Yeah.
And I went into the pain and the pleasure of that. So imagine having all of these properties. What will I gain? Or even after the first property, what are the benefits there? What will I gain? It's not going to give me a bunch of money, but like, what's the real value? And who else benefits from that? And like, who else? If there was somebody that would benefit in addition to myself, who would it be? Right? And I thought, well, gosh, I mean, I've got other friends, other peers that if they see that it's possible, that might be enough for them to get over their own fears. It might actually help influence them, right? And then the pain of not doing it, the idea of like knowing, like, I'll never know what I could have been capable of if I never do this. And that was painful, right? And the idea of like, I think it would actually tie into my own identity of thinking like, I'm not even my word. I'm too weak to even try things. I don't know. I could have been successful. Maybe I'm not smart enough or whatever. So I got real clear on the pain and the pleasure by just asking myself, how will I benefit and who else will benefit? And what will it cost me if I don't do it? And who else would pay that price, right? And then the third thing that I'll share. So let me just recap the whys to get down already, because you already have a why. Why do you want what you want? And why is that important? And why is that important? Get to the point where you feel emotion. The next one is tap into your own pain and pleasure. What you gain? What will it cost you if you don't do this? And then the other thing that worked really well for me is I felt pretty strong on this already at this point. I still had like a month and a half to go in Europe, and I was having a ton of fun. But every day I would sit down multiple times and write in my journal. And so I just started, I guess we would call it visioning about it, like, your future vision of stuff. But I just kept thinking like, well, all right, so I want to buy my first property within a year. My goal was I'm going to get my first property. I'm only 21 years old, and I want to buy my first rental property within a year. I've never even purchased a car on my own, right? Or a cell phone on my own. And then I started asking the question. I just played this game that I made up, and it was just, what's bigger than that? And I would just be like, all right, well, so since I'm just imagining, well, what would be even bigger than that? And I was like, well, man, what if I was able to get my first property in 6 months, in the next 6 months? Like, what if I got that property and I was able to get that? And then I was like, what's bigger than that? And I was like, well, I mean, 90 days. Well, what's bigger than that? Well, that it's like a duplex instead of a regular house. What's bigger than that? And I just kept doing it over and over again, like to be like, I bought 2 properties this year. By the time I was at the tail end of my Europe trip, I was really clear on what I wanted, why I wanted it. I was really clear on the pain and pleasure around it. I couldn't get home fast enough. It was like it had already happened. I just needed to get home so I could flip the damn switch, right? Yeah. And as it turns out, that was the fuel that I needed, because when other people would be afraid for me, it would shut me down before I went to Europe. And they would just be like, I don't know, that one looks pretty risky. Or I don't know, you could lose a lot of money on this. I don't know, do you know how to fix this one up? And my dad, who had purchased rental properties before, even he was a little nervous for me, because these property prices were a lot more expensive than the ones he ever bought, because I was in a completely different market. And my dad's a really smart guy and very good when it comes to rental properties. So somebody that was a very wise voice in this space, it was very scary to not see him confident about what I was about to do, right? And so, but I came back on fire. Nothing was going to stop me. And I decided there's nothing more painful than not doing it. And that if I was going to fail, I was going to fail hard and on my own and fast. I was going to do this. Like, what better time to fail than when I'm 21, right? Yeah. Let's crash and burn now, but I will regret not stepping up to the plate. I won't regret failing nearly as much. And so within 90 days, I had closed on my first duplex. So I got back, hit the ground running, closed on my first duplex in 90 days. And another thing that, like, I shared this with Ryan, this might be the TMI stuff, but one of the visions that I had while I was there was like this feeling of waking up in the middle of the night. When our bladders get full, we drink water too late, it's 2 a.m. And I thought that feeling of that second that I'm awake enough, all of a sudden to be like, I'm making money right now.
I'm literally getting paid right now.
Right now at 2 a.m. And so getting that fixed up, getting tenants in that thing, and then moving out and just seeing it like, wow, that's making me money and I don't have to do any more work on it. So those are my tips.
2 forms of relief at the same time.
Kirk. Yeah, 2 forms. It was like double relief. It was amazing. Yeah. So super quick recap. Ask yourself why 3 times. Get clear on the pain and pleasure. And the fun game of the visioning in whatever form, but I just kept doing like, what's bigger than that? If this did work, what's bigger than that? What's bigger than that? And the only thing that I can say is have that conversation with yourself. You can always get in your vehicle and drive around the block, or talk to yourself out loud while you're in the shower, or at least type it out or write it out. Do more than just putting it in your head, and just get really clear on why you're doing what you're doing and enhance that. I'll leave that part of there. Just spend some time in that, and it will be worth it.
And it's a form of creation. I mean, you are literally taking it out of your brain, and whether even it's just vocally, and I love what you said about writing it down, it's like you are making it a real thing by doing that as well. And also, to your point of recapping, so much in all 3 of those things is feeling. Mm-hmm. You need to feel your why, right? You need to, like you said, the first part was getting clear on the vision, but it can't just be like, well, I can kind of see this thing. You want to feel like, why is this important to me, right? So the real vision, is this a vision? How will I feel when that's done? Second one, the pain and the pleasure. Am I feeling the pain of it not getting done? Am I thinking about it? Am I making it an internal thing? And am I really making the time to create gratitude and feel what it would be like at the end? right? Once it is accomplished, whatever my why is, once I'm making the money, when I have the clients, whatever it is. And then that last one of passion, right? It's a different type. So it's similar to the second one, but like, okay, now that I know what it is, I know how I'm going to feel, how can I feel right now while I'm doing this? How can I step into today? How can I make my why a present why? Like, how can I do it today? Not like why I might want to do this, but why do I want to do this right now and every day until it happens? So it's interesting to see, like, and we've talked about this before in the past, as far as logic versus emotion, right? When you're actually buying something, well, in this case scenario, you're purchasing with sweat equity, you're purchasing your future, right? And so you're going to do this with emotion. And then the logic, of course, I want to do it so I have money and I can pay the bills and I don't have to work anymore or whatever it is. But the emotion around, like, I can love my life because I'm doing it the way that I want to. And I've created something and I'm rewarded for my efforts. Like, it's all kind of, that's also what I was feeling and hearing as you were kind of.
Yeah. And just to like that. So Ryan's tapping into the part that we've mentioned a lot of times, but everything that we do is based on emotion and we justify it with logic. And what we're doing in this little exercise, and by the way, you can pick just one of those if you want, or if you really want to stack it and it's a big enough deal, do all three of them. Do it regularly. Don't just do it once, right? But pick just one, it'll work. Do all three, it'll be massive. But to build your why muscle, you can actually do it for anything. So imagine, for example, you're like, you know what, I'm going to clean the house this weekend. I mean, I'm going to be doing some mopping. I'm going to be doing some dishes, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm going to be listening to music. I'm going to enjoy it. You already know you're going to do it. So just for fun, you could pick one of these, do the pain and pleasure one or whatever, and actually just enhance it. What you're really doing is working on your why muscle. But let's just say that same scenario, and you're like, all right, so what am I gonna benefit, or how am I gonna benefit from cleaning my house? Well, it's gonna be a nice clean house. But even more than that, what else? How else will I benefit? Well, just that feeling of just getting something done and just adding value and like being a lot of on purpose for the weekend, what pain have I experienced by not doing it up to this point? And what am I going to be resolving? And just like work on your own pain and pleasure, right? Who else will benefit from this? And all of that. And you can actually, or any of those things, like, why do I want to do this? And, or how can I enhance this and make it even more fun? Or the visioning part of things, like, what's bigger than that? Well, you know what? I'm going to clean the house and I'm going to do a really good job and I'm going to mop. Well, what's bigger than that? Well, you know what? I'm going to do all that and I'm going to get that book on tape that I've been wanting to do. I'm going to crank up Audible through my Amazon Alexa or put some headphones in, or I'm going to do some Zumba around the house while I'm doing this stuff. I'm going to totally enhance that, or catch up on my soap operas while I'm multitasking or whatever. Like, I don't know what it's like, what's bigger than that? And you know what? I've been wanting to buy that plant from that nursery down the street or at Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm also going to get that because I'm going to clean a space for it and I'm going to put that thing out and I'm going to start my garden, damn it, or whatever it is, right? And what's bigger than that? So the thing that you already were going to do in a very short period of time, you actually can get even that much more jazzed and excited. And here's what just happened. You were already going to do it, but your overall enjoyment of doing it actually goes up, even if you were going to enjoy it anyways. Strengthening your why behind what you're doing actually increases the experience that you're ultimately going to have. So you're going to have a much better time. You might do a much better job. You might be just fueled that much more just by doing it. And what I feel is most important is even picking these small things to exercise your why muscle. That makes it easier and easier and easier for you to actually do this for anything. You don't have to force yourself to get in your vehicle and go for a drive and power talk yourself. You want to do that. You know how to do it and you do it regularly anyways. And you're always strengthening your whys because it adds real color and flavor and enhancement to all of the things that you're doing in life. So I feel like I'm on a real soapbox for this why stuff.
That's it, man. It's important. And so it's the difference between a chore and a mission.
Yeah.
Right? If it feels like a chore, it's like, oh, I guess I have to do this thing. Mission is like, man, I am doing this thing and I know what's on the other side. It's not a pain in the ass, or maybe it is a pain in the ass, but it's still, to your point, it doesn't have to be. It can be enjoyable. It's my mission. It's my plan. Here we go. It is 8:46.
Yeah, so that's what I think we really hit that one from a lot of different angles. It's something I'm passionate about. I'm sure it just won't be the last time we talk about the why. Everything happens after the why. The why comes first, the how comes second. But I think today was a really great it's just a topic that I really enjoy talking about. So love to hear any
Listen,
comments from all of you as well, because it is something I'm very passionate about. But I'd love to know your experience with why, and or what, if anything, that Ryan and I can do to help you with your why. If you want a buddy on that, and if you're like, look, I just want a conversation with somebody to strengthen my why, we'll play the coach for you, and we'll just ask you the questions, and we'll help you, like, so you don't have to be coach for yourself. We literally can go back and forth, get your why strengthened and on fire. We'll challenge you a little bit, and you walk away with that. If we can help you in that space, let us know. Let's set up one-on-one time. I would love that.
I would love that as well. And I will say, you know, a great way to remember this. I don't know if this is a great way to, this is a corny joke. I hope everybody's ready for it. You said the why comes first. And I could say, listen, a way to remember it would be, if you were to do the alphabet backwards, the Y comes first.
That, everyone, is the dad joke of the day.
Is that a good way to close out? The Y comes first.
The Y comes first.
All right. With that, yeah, we're gonna rock out. Thank you guys for being here. Kirk, as always, you're awesome. I appreciate your
Thanks,
presence.
Ryan. You're awesome. This was a great session. I had a good time.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being you.
See you, everyone.